This channel is for mature audiences only. If you're underage on this channel, your parents' mom should have swallowed them or spit them out.
What's good? This is Internal Sadist. And this video is going to be about exercise, eating healthy, and sleeping, basically. The sad part about that is we always talk about eating healthy, exercising, and all this stuff when in fact, at the end of the day, half y'all don't even know what the hell y'all are eating any damn way, first off. Secondly, people always talk about how they're eating healthy when in fact, everything they eat is controlled, sanctioned, and modified by your government or various governments who actually got together and did this shit. Sadly, at the end of the day, let it be meat, let it be seeds, let it be all this other great shit. It's all been modified by a government for all intents and purposes. Even the vegan food where it tastes like meat, for all intents and purposes, it's been modified to the point where you now you want to eat it because it tastes like the actual food that you're actually trying to get away from. The sad part about that is if you're trying to get away from that food, why do you need it to taste like that food? That is a problem within itself. Secondly, if you actually go and actually check a lot of this stuff, you'll find out very quickly that a lot of this vegan food that tastes just like the actual thing has a level of real to it for all intents and purposes. That's the word I'll go with. It has a level of real to it for all intents and purposes. And yes, this video is being viewed on two channels basically, because YouTube's been messing with it and pushing one and not other, or it'll take down one video on one channel, it'll leave the other channel up basically. So I've been doing videos on both channels for this reason. What's up, Wind again? But the sad part about that is at the end of the day, it's one of those things where you find out very quickly, if you're in a vegan community, you find out very quickly that a lot of your food that tastes like the real thing has a level of real to it. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say any more on that. It's just a matter of fact, basically. Because you can't make something taste like something without using something real. That's basically like, good example of that is just because you use chicken stock or chicken bouillon cubes or something like that, you're basically using the actual product. It'd be no different if I were to take bones from chickens and boil it down to a broth, basically. Same difference. Let's just put it that way, and we'll just keep it moving when it comes to the vegans. So anything that actually tastes like something has a level of real to it at the end of the day, whether you like it or not. The sad part about that is all these people always talk about how good they're eating when in fact all their food that they're eating is GMO'd up to the max for all intents and purposes. And people will sit there and argue with me about, well, that's not right. My corn is organic and this, that, and the other. Well, if you know anything about the history of corn, you would know that corn don't grow in certain countries, and they only grew in certain countries, basically. There's a reason why it can grow everywhere now versus it only growing in certain regions. It had to be GMO'd so it can actually grow in that region at the end of the day. And people will always try to give me backlash to go, well, that's a good thing. Well, no. If you had to genetically modify something, that's a bad thing. How would you like if I genetically modified you? You don't like it? Okay, then. So why would you accept that with your food? You see what I'm saying? And that's basically how I've always been when it comes to stuff like that and people. And it's like, another good example is rice. Rice only originally grew in certain areas. Now you can get it almost anywhere in the world. Why is that? It's been genetically modified, sadly. The sad part about that is if it wasn't genetically modified, then it wouldn't grow in those areas, or it wouldn't survive the winters or the storms or the floods or any of that stuff, basically, if it was meant to grow everywhere in the world for all intents and purposes. It would be able to survive a lot of this shit. But the sad part about that is it can't, so you got to genetically modify it to make it so it actually can, which is another problem. And I've always talked about, and no, sweetheart, before you open your mouth and ask, nigga, send me your address, and I'll fucking send you the seeds. Damn, I'm getting tired of this shit. Don't ask me to send you seeds, and you don't send me the damn address so I can send you the damn seeds, smartass. You can send me a PO box, whatever, nigga. Send me the damn thing, and I'll send you the damn seeds. Moving right along. What's up, Corey Steele? Um, the thing about that is there's not too many families in this world that can literally grow food that hasn't been controlled by the world government. Everybody thinks their food wasn't controlled by the world government, but at the end of the day, about 100% of the world, 90% of the world, I would say 90 to 98%, 98 to 99% of the world eats seeds that came from that vault, the seed vault, basically. There's about two seed vaults, and one's in Sweden, the other one's in, I think, northern North America, some damn where. I forget where it is exactly. I don't know if it's North Pole or if it's Canada or if it's like the northern border between Canada and United States. But there's another seed vault there. The sad part about that is most most of the food that people eat is literally in that seed vault. Anytime shit goes wrong, they can basically call on a seed vault so they can actually fix something. So anytime something happens in a world where you lose let's just say a natural disaster happens and you lose a shit ton of crops, they can actually go to the seed vault, figure out what region you're in, get you some seeds specific to that region, and you can grow your shit and you'll be perfectly fine. It's typically how it works. The sad part about that is we always talk about how the government is controlling everything and they shouldn't be in everybody's life, but at the end of the day, the government's actually in farmers' lives in the United States and in first world countries. They're in farmers' lives because they basically have to buy the seeds from the actual government, and it was actually given to them by the actual government and various other things. This is typically why the farmers are in a situation that they are now today. I mean, don't get me wrong, the crops grow better, but at the end of the day, that'd be like saying if you're used to something being a certain way and you eat it, it's perfectly fine. However, what you can't tell me is not genetically modified this cow or this food. Your children growing to be bigger and stronger and faster and all this shit doesn't have a direct effect from the fact that you genetically modified a lot of this stuff at the end of the day. Because the sad part about that, it's only a matter of time of eating something that it'll seep into other parts of life or other life forms. It's basically like the science the science chart back in science class way back when, if you're between what grades 2 and 5, there was a chart that literally showed the circle of life basically. There was the bottom feeder. The bottom feeder get eats by another fish. Another fish eats that fish. The other fish eats that fish. A guppy, another fish eats that fish. The big mouth bass eats that fish. A bigger fish eats that fish, and a shark eats that fish. Basically, you see what I'm saying? So basically, what ends up happening is you basically eat the same shit that your food eats. Basically, it's that running joke. Basically, you eat what your food eats. Basically, you are what your food eats for all intents and purposes. So if your cow is eating genetically modified grass or feed, you're going to encounter that genetically modified feed in your system for all intents and purposes. If your chickens are eating genetically, because the sad part about that, what a lot of people actually don't know, cows and chickens aren't supposed to be that fucking big. Cows and chickens naturally aren't that fucking big unless you genetically modify them at the end of the day. Chickens are typically run pretty light for all intents and purposes. If you have a chicken that big, it's usually a certain breed of chickens. But if you have all your chickens that big, now there's a problem. They're genetically modified. The sad part about that, it's, yeah, like you said, the food chain, basically. So it's one of those things where it's like you follow the food chain and you realize where the hell your shit came from. A good example of a food chain breakdown is oil. When there's an oil spill in the ocean, the fish that you got from the ocean literally ingested some of that oil, and the fish that ate it ingested the oil, and the fish that ate it ingested some oil. Then a fisherman comes out and catches that fish, and now that fish is actually on your plate some damn where. It's typically how it works. So in all technicality, you're really not eating healthy, whether you like it or not, because there's always some impurities in your food to some extent. And the government basically overlooks it, or basically says, well, that's fine. Or they go, well, this, that, and the other. Like iodine in a lot of the shellfish or seafood, iodine is actually not supposed to be that high. in a lot of those shellfish and seafood, basically. This is typically why you have a lot of people that are allergic to shellfish and seafood, for the fact that the iodine levels are higher than normal. The same thing goes for chickens. Like, there are chickens that are made to be that big, but not all chickens are made to be that big. You can't sit up here and tell me that this normal ass run of the mill chicken is supposed to be as big as a fucking chicken that Chernobyl one has, basically. Come on now. Let's just keep it 100. Your chicken's not supposed to be as big as a fucking a turkey, basically. Come on now. Your chicken was genetically modified, basically. And the sad part about it is true. You're like, a lot of the food that you eat, no matter if you like it or not, even if it's organic, has been genetically modified. Organic food has been genetically modified. The sad part about that, the only reason why it's considered quote unquote organic is because it doesn't have pesticides on it. And the sad part about that, the faster you learn that, the better off you'll be. That's the only reason why it's considered organic, for the fact that it doesn't have pesticides on it, for all intents and purposes. And that's it. Like, it doesn't have pesticides, and it might be one other thing, basically. Yeah, like you said, your chicken shouldn't be T-Rex size. What's up, Billy to go? The sad part about that is people always try to argue with me on their food, and they find out very quickly that their food is not as healthy as they believe it out to be. Or they find out very quickly, and they want to, be deniers, or they want to hate on me, and they want to say, you don't know what you're talking about, when in fact, I know exactly what I'm talking about, for the fact that I actually own a farm. My family owns a farm and has been owning farms since before the U.S. government. It's been the U.S. government since before a lot of these world powers have been world powers. My family's owned a farm. Way, way back when. They've been owning the same damn farm. Only thing different is the land size that they own, and the amount of space that they own, and the people actually owning it right now. That's the only thing that changed. The names, the faces, and the size of the actual, property. That's it. The sad part about that is we've had the same seeds since day one that everybody else don't get. This is what I'm talking about when it comes to seeds. Basically, we have seeds that aren't like our family and a few other families and a few other farmers actually literally have seeds that weren't in the food vault. The sad part about that is our food don't really get sold as much to the public as the ones in the vault. Typically, what ends up happening, our food actually goes to major companies like Coca-Cola, or major companies, basically, so they can use it, so they can actually put it in their product, along with 90 other different things that they put in their products, basically. Because the sad part about that is, if the government actually allowed everybody mass consumption of our foods, they'll find out very quickly that you're going to have better, healthier eating, basically, with our food versus the GMO shit up, basically, because you can actually control people when you actually GMO food, basically. The sad part about that is that seed vault, the seeds don't stay the same. They when somebody thinks of some shit, they add it to that seed just so they can actually figure out so they can actually control the population. Sad part about that is, when it comes to population control, it's one thing to just modify the seeds to grow anywhere. It's another thing to modify the seeds so men can actually act like women or have less testosterone in their system. This is typically where the shit starts getting hinky. The sad part about that is very rare where you'll actually see our products being sold to the mass public, unless we're selling it directly to the mass public. For all intents and purposes, this is typically why you always see the roadside people selling oranges or shit like that, or roadside people in Latin America selling stuff like that, because it's actually natural, and the government doesn't really have control or regulation over what they're selling, basically. And the sad part about that is just natural fresh fruit, or natural fresh grain, or natural fresh, sugar cane, or natural fresh everything. The irony to it is, like, a lot of times when you sell your product, you're literally selling to like a major corporation like Coca-Cola. Like, a good example of that, sugar cane. A lot of times people who buy sugar cane are usually like, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, basically, and a few other people for various things and ingredients for products, for all intents and purposes, unless they use high fructose corn syrup. Sadly, they use high fructose corn syrup in Canada and the United States and a few other places, whereas they use sugarcane sugar in other places, sadly. And the sad part about that, Coca-Cola and Pepsi a long time ago used to have sugarcane sugar in it. The sad part about that is they found it cheaper because they can genetically modify some shit and get high fructose corn syrup and put it in your drink and make a cheaper product of sugar, basically, and then serve it to you, and you all drink it on a regular basis. You're all addicted to it, and you all drink it at the end of the day. So you can't sit up here and tell me that, oh no, I don't drink it, when you do. I'm seeing niggas be like, I eat healthy, but you're eating high fructose corn. You're drinking high fructose corn syrup, Mountain Dew, basically, or Pepsi or Coca-Cola in your stream, but you eat healthy. That makes a lot of sense. And the sad part about that is, well, no. Well, the sad part about that is, at the end of the day, you eat those toxins and it doesn't really absorb anything when it gets into your body. Basically, your body absorbs all the toxins from that GMO stuff, whether you like it or not, at the end of the day. There's really no way around it, whether you like it or not. Your body basically absorbs the GMO toxins from that shit. And the sad part about that, you can't say it don't when you got girls who are like literally 10 who look like they're fucking 12. I mean, look, fucking like 18 right now. Like, really? When in the history of niggerdom have you ever seen a little girl look like a good example of that is the R. Kelly incident. I'm not saying everything he did was right, but the one where if a girl's 16 and she's up in the club, or if a girl's underage and she's up in the club and nobody carded her ass and she looks like she's old enough and she's built and stacked like she's old enough, you can't sit up here and tell me that GMO is good for you. When in fact you got a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old walking up in a club for 21 and over, basically. Like, think about this shit. Think about this shit. She looking like she's 20. It's kind of like that running joke. What's the running joke? She looked like she's 23. She claims she's 21, but she's really 16. There's like literally a running joke, running meme on the internet about that. She looked like she's 21. She looked like she's 20 something. She claims she's 18. She's really 16 or 15. It is what it is. It's sad. The sad part about that is, and it's not even just with women. You see, like children. Like when I went to my daughter's school, I always talk about this one kid that's taller than me. This little nigga, he's only like 11 years old. This little nigga, well, he's not even a little nigga. He's about like 6'5", 230 pounds of muscle, of fucking muscle. Nobody in his fucking family is that fucking big. His dad is not that damn big. His dad is about like 5'10", 5'11" at most. His mom is about what, like 5'6", 5'7". Nobody weighs two something in his family, and that nigga's big as fuck. He's a big ass kid. I remember he was saying hi to me, and I thought he was security and shit like that, because this was like this big ass nigga and shit like that. Meanwhile, I found out he's only 11. He plays basketball. He's on a football team. He's a big ass nigga. Because I thought maybe he was like somebody's a parent, or security for the school and shit like that. And it's like, wait a minute, you go to school here, dude? Like, come on now. You can't sit up here and tell me that GMO ain't affecting that big ass nigga. Basically, that nigga was big as fuck. I thought that nigga was a grown ass adult. And the sad part about that is GMOs affect everybody in every way, shape, or form, whether you like it or not. Let it be sexual organs on women. Let it be big ass niggas that look like cattle, basically. Niggas out here looking like fucking longhorn bulls and shit like that. For all intents and purposes, it's sad. It's sad. Well, and the sad part about that, it's one thing if they're tall. It's another thing if they're fucking like built like fucking supermodels when they're underage, basically, or they're built like the sexiest women or the sexiest men alive, basically, Forbes list, basically. Then there's a problem. There's a big problem with that at that point, if you know what I mean. It's one thing if they're tall, because shit's gonna happen. If you're tall, they're going to be tall. If you're fat, they're going to be fat. If you got bad genetics, they're going to have bad genetics. If you have good genetics, they're going to have good genetics. Not all the time, but that's typically how it works. Like a good example of funny genetics in my family is my mom's side of the family. And I hate to pick on my mom's side of the family, but it's true. The men in my mom's family are all toned and fit to muscular, basically. So they basically have a six pack, or they're all toned and fit for all intents and purposes and muscular. The women in my mom's family are built to withstand like some shit, basically. built to withstand childbearing, built to withstand, you know, hits, built because they're thick women. They're not fat women, they're thick women. And typically the women in the family have like born more bone mass, basically, is the best way to describe it. So she the sad part about that is the women in my family, they basically have more bone mass, whereas the men in the family have more muscle mass. And the neat thing about that is the women in the family, their bones are a bit thicker and much more denser than the men in the family's bones, sadly. But the counter to that is the men typically have a lot of muscle to protect them from other shit for all intents and purposes. So genetically, that family's set up in a way where they're meant to survive some shit basically and keep on going. That's one upside to my mom's family that I can actually say. Because my grandmother has thick bones and she's not a thick woman, but she's like um the best way to describe it is the perfect woman, hourglass figure, basically. The women in my mom's side of the family are basically built to have hourglass figures. Their bone structures, all built to be hourglass, basically. Um, it is what it is. Um, so it's one of those things where you have to basically. She scares me when she throws punches. Well, the thing about it is it depends on what you actually eat. It may take longer than 7 years, or depending on your metabolism in your body, if it ain't destroyed, it may take quicker than 7 years. So it depends on the person's body. It depends on a person's body and genetics for all intents and purposes on how quick. Because a good example of that is alcohol. Some people can metabolize alcohol under an hour. Some people it takes about an hour to 2 hours to metabolize one drink of alcohol, basically. So it's one of those things where you basically either be able to pace yourself and or eat proper. I mean, do it in a way or know your body perfectly, basically, so you don't have to worry about shit like that. Your child's abusing you. You might want to go to a domestic violence shelter there, Billy to go. But the thing about it is when it comes down to it, the only reason why the food is genetically modified is to basically make it grow in areas where it's not supposed to grow. There are certain crops that don't grow in certain areas, and they grow there now for the fact that they're genetically modified. And the sad part about that is, if it was meant to grow there, you wouldn't have to genetically modify it to grow there. At the end of the day, or you wouldn't have to do this all year round greenhouse, so you can actually grow some shit basically in the area that you're in, and have to control the settings and the atmosphere of it so you can actually get the desired effect at the end of the day. Um, Another good example of like um, fixing and stuff like that is what a lot of people don't know. If you're a smoker, the minute you quit smoking, your body actually goes into repair mode. I think within 24 hours after you quit smoking, about 36 hours, your everything starts changing to the fact where it starts to get back to normal. And about like a week later, your body starts to go, your respiratory system starts to get back on track, breathing, your everything starts to get back into get back into the rhythm that it's supposed to be, basically. Heartbeat, everything. Um, that's the funny thing. Your lungs actually clear up after about a year or two, basically, and they actually go back to being pink and shit like that. So your body does have its self-correcting things to it at the end of the day, whether you like it or not. Your body will self-correct itself if you let it self-correct itself, that is. And this is basically what a manly load is talking about. Your body will self-correct itself if you let it, if you do the proper things to let it self-correct itself. Um, at the end of the day. So yeah, there's that. The sad part about that is people always talk about exercise like it's going out of style. Now, there's three types of people who exercise. There's the people who pretend to exercise. There's the people who are exercising and get nowhere. Well, actually, it's four. There are the people who pretend to exercise. Those are usually the women who go to the gym just so they can get attention from men, and they really aren't really exercising shit. There are the people who try their best to exercise, but they're not hitting their threshold. There's the threshold exercisers where they hit their threshold and are starting to make some gains. And then there's the cult of gains. I refer to them, the cult of gains. Where they exercise so much it's like going out of style. Where you actually want to be is either A, you want to be exercising enough to actually maintain your body, which is like usually a lot of these exercisers who don't really push the boundaries, basically. So you're basically just exercising enough to maintain your body. Then there's also the what I refer to the third group, where you basically go past your breaking point, basically your tipping point, basically, and you basically want to be that guy. You don't really want to be the guy of the cult of gains unless your body's built for that. The sad part about that, there's a lot of people that are trying to be the cult of gains that don't have the body for the cult of gains, basically. Um, there's a shit ton of people who do this shit, and they drop out and they basically just die on a regular basis. Um, yeah, I was saying that yesterday. Well, yesterday or day before yesterday in a stream. Rest is more important than exercise, and that's what I was going to get into. The sad part about that, there's the people that are in the cult of gains that don't get the sleep that they need, and they end up having a heart attack or having some type of what's it called electrolyte imbalance, or they'll have some type of chemical imbalance in their body, and then end up just dropping off the face of the earth. The same thing goes for people who drink too much water. You can actually get like water toxicity if you drink way too much fucking water, if you're not built for drinking that much water at the end of the day, and you end up dying from it, sadly. So you can end up dying from drinking too much water, yes. And the sad part about that is there's a lot of people who die from that who are, quote unquote, the most healthiest people in the whole entire world. Getting gains every day, if your body's not built for it, is not always good. Yeah, I mean, the sad part about that is when you actually start working out and stuff like that, believe it or not, more platelets start running through your body. Because the sad part about that, you also got to take this right too. When you start working out, you start tearing muscle. You start destroying. Technically, you get many tears, and you start destroying parts of your body so it can heal and rebuild. Basically, at the end of the day, the sad part about that is at the end of the day, when this shit actually starts happening, your body's naturally going to release antibodies, and blood cell. I mean, red and white blood cells and platelets basically throughout the body, so it can actually repair your body. The sad part about that is when this actually happens, if you're not doing it properly, you can actually end up with thickened blood on a regular basis. And you end up with basically a heart attack, or you end up with anything else under the sun, basically. I've seen people have heart attacks, and apparently very little blood is rushing through their system. Or they had heart attacks and too much blood is rushing through their system. So it's one of those things where, like, you got to find a nice balance at the end of the day. But yeah, like Manly said, rest is more important than exercise, because at the end of the day, rest basically resets every single thing in your system, whether you like it or not. It resets everything from, every single part of your every single part of your every single system of your body, from your circulatory system to your neurological system, your nerve system, to your respiratory system, to your thyroid system, to your cardiac system, to all this stuff. It basically makes it so it gives it all rest, and it makes it reset, and it also repairs muscle much faster when you sleep at the end of the day. Because if you think about it, you're not running around and using the muscle so the muscle can actually rest and get the proper repair it actually needs. The sad part about that is when you're actually repairing muscle, you actually need to actually take that rest. This is typically why they have rest days in between a lot of the exercise, or they say you should, work out your arms every other day, work out your legs every other day, or work out a body part every other day, basically, because you actually need that rest period. Or you work out 3 days straight, then rest, then 3 days straight, basically. So 3 on, 1 off, 3 on, basically. It's typically how it works. So it's one of those things where you basically have to basically do it properly, so you don't have to worry about shit like that. The sad part about that, there's a lot of people in the cult of gains who end up dead from the cult of gains, basically, sadly. So you can actually over-exercise and overdo it if you're not doing it properly, or if you're not eating properly, or if you're not doing what you need to do to maintain shit, sadly. It's true and it's sad. So the sad part about that is, and when it comes down to it, everything is a choice. when something goes wrong in your life, it's a series of bad decisions you made to get to that point in your life at the end of the day. So if you're fat, you basically made multiple decisions to be fat. If you're if you're if you have health problems, you basically, unless it's genetics, and even still, you can usually avoid genetic, like, stuff that's genetically passed down from family to member to family member. The sad part about that is it's a series of decisions that you have to make to either mitigate it or not have to deal with it at the end of the day. Even if it's genetically, even if it's something that's genetically runs through your family, you may have to deal with it a little bit, but you're not going to have to deal with it to the extent of the rest of your family if you do it properly and you mitigate it for all intents and purposes. This guy, resting ice cream. But yeah, at the end of the day, sleep is more important than exercise because you need it for the rest of your body. Just because you work your muscles, that don't mean you're going to be healthy if you're not taking a sleep. The sad part about that is what they've actually found is people who work 12-hour shifts are more likely to have heart attacks than people who work normal shifts, or people who work shifts that aren't natural to their body are more likely to have heart attacks, like overnight shift or 12-hour shifts. Like if you work middle of the day or morning, perfectly fine. If you work night shift, you're more likely to have a heart attack than somebody working middle of the day or morning shift. Or if you work 12 hours, you're more likely to have a heart attack than a person working overnight and stuff like that. So typically, this is typically why you always hear nurses and doctors who are having heart attacks themselves. It's funny to watch people who work in a certain unit, cardiovascular unit or, the telemetry unit, who are actually having the very same problems that you're having. And it's one of those things where you laugh at them like a hypocrite. And it's funny, but it's not really funny for the fact that they're going through shit. But it's to the point now where, like, literally the studies are actually coming out that it's not great to work 12-hour shifts, or it's not great to work overnight shifts, basically. But people do it. And the sad part about that, it's nothing more than a series of decisions or choice that got yourself into it at the end of the day, whether you like it or not. Um, the irony to it is it's all about how you eat. It's all about the stuff that you're eating. If you're eating shit that's actually been grown from the seed vault, you're not really eating healthy at the end of the day, whether you like it or not. And the sad part about that, even the people who quote unquote eat healthy living are eating shit from the seed vault or eating shit that the government pretty much regulates at the end of the day. Unless you live in a third world country where you actually know a farmer who can actually get you some actual shit, you're eating from the seed vault, whether you like it or not. Because the sad part about that is those genetically modified seeds that you're eating end up being not so great for your body. And it's sad. And the sad part about that is, like I was saying, there's very few people in this world who actually have seeds that aren't genetically modified that only grow in certain areas that the government pretty soon is going to start cracking down on. They haven't done it yet, but they're probably going to try to do some oversight in other countries where they make other countries crack down on this shit. It's like I was saying with No Sweetheart. I can't be sending you a bunch of seeds because they're considered controlled substances after a certain point, unless I send you like perennials and seeds that are like literally legal and sanctioned by the U.S. government or your various governments. Basically, I can send as many as those as I want, and it won't be considered as a controlled substance. However, I cannot send you regular ass seeds from my farm and not be in jail for a controlled substance at the end of the day, because they fall under controlled substance at the end of the day. And that's basically how they treat them, because they don't have regulation over them. So it's good. It's a controlled substance. It's basically what they do with drugs. If you don't have control over it, then it's a controlled substance and it's considered a narcotic basically at some point. And some seeds are considered narcotics. Some aren't. Some are considered just a controlled substance. Some are actually on the list for the worst offenders. So if I send it to you, I could literally go to jail for life for some of that shit. It'd be like a level 3 or level whatever the hell they call it, basically. Controlled substance, basically. And it's sad, but it's pretty much how it works. So I typically try to send as little as possible, as much as possible, basically, to various people. That way they get what they want from me, and I don't have to worry about the backlash of the governments of the world for all intents and purposes. So I send out seeds quite often. But at the end of the day, for all the vegans out there who eat vegan food that tastes like or vegans and vegetarians who eat vegan and vegetarian food that tastes like the actual product. All I want to say to you is, at some point in that chain, you're actually eating the actual product, whether you like it or not. You're eating the actual product. It'd be no different than eating stock or eating a fucking bouillon cube or me boiling a bone from the actual animal into a broth. You're basically eating that animal. They're basically just minimizing it to the point so you can feel good about yourself at the end of the day. So basically you're coping with the fact that you're eating something that you have a taste for that you think is bad, basically. But in fact, if you're going to be a vegan or a vegetarian, you should be eating the food because you believe in the food. You should be eating the food because it tastes good to you, basically. That's the problem that I have with people who do that shit. You're basically at some point actually eating the actual very animal that you're touting against, basically. You can't sit up and say, well, I don't eat animal, but you eat food that tastes like the fucking animal. You're basically eating the fucking animal, whether you like it or not. It may not be large amounts, but it's small enough where I even know chemically you're still eating the fucking animal. At the end of the day, it's sad, but it's true. You're eating the fucking animal, whether you like it or not, no matter how much you want to trick yourself or believe in you not eating the animal when in fact you're actually eating the fucking animal. Because if your food tastes like that animal, if you're trying to become a vegan and you're eating the food that tastes like the very animal that you're trying to get rid of or trying to get out of your diet, you're literally eating that fucking animal. Look what happened with the Impossible Burger, quote unquote. It's actually much worse for you to eat an Impossible Burger than for you to eat a fucking Whopper. Like, think about that. The Impossible Burger is way worse than a fucking Whopper. Matter of fact, the Impossible Burger is worse than eating a triple Whopper. Like, think about that shit. How the fuck is the Impossible Burger worse than eating a triple Whopper? How the fuck is the Impossible Burger worse than eating a Burger King double Baconator? Like, think about that. Like, think about that shit for a second. Because the sad part about that, like I said, when it comes down to it, cows aren't supposed to be that big, and chickens aren't supposed to be that big. If you have a cow that's big as fuck, you're eating a genetically modified cow. If you have a fucking chicken that's the size of a fucking chicken that occurs elsewhere, like Shinobi wants chickens, and it's not that type of chicken, you're eating a modified chicken. So at the end of the day, you're eating unnatural and you're eating unhealthy any fucking way, whether you like it or not. It is what it is. Another thing that actually pisses me off when it comes to people like that is the non-vaxxers. The thing that pisses me off the most is they'll say that they don't want a vaccine, but they're still eating the food that pretty much has the shit in it. Like, make that make sense, Pimpin'. So you mean you don't want your children to get a vaccine, but the very stuff that's in vaccines is in your very food that you're fucking eating right now and the water that you're fucking drinking. But you want to avoid a vaccine, but it's in your water and your food supply. How are you avoiding this shit if it's in your water or food supply, my guy? How are you eating? How are you non-vaxxer when you're eating the very food that is controlled by the fucking government? Like, think about that shit. Think about that shit, my guy. What do you think? They just genetically modify the food and that's it so they can have bigger, stronger crops? No, they put more shit in the food than what you think, sadly. That's the problem with people, and they don't think that far ahead, and they think immediately and or what's in front of their fucking face at the moment. The finished product isn't really the product that you're actually eating. It looks like that, but it's not supposed to look like that, or it's not supposed to be like that. It's kind of like the McDonald's people. They literally have tasters and professional tasters so they make their food taste a certain way so people can like it. All foods do this shit. Let it be taste. Another good example of that is all these idiots that run around here with these cars that they think sound good or is very, very powerful. Your engine is quiet. There's a sound box in your fucking car to make it sound like it's powerful. Hate to break it to you. Everybody that buys these Challengers, these Chargers, these Mustangs, there's a sound box to make it sound like that. Your engine is very quiet. So when you start up your engine and you do all this shit and you're sitting there revving it to sound cool, you're really only revving the sound box. You're not set revving the fucking engine at all, because your engine is much more silent and quieter than you think it is. Your engine's pretty much running like a fucking Prius right now, but the sound coming out of your car is coming from the sound box coming off the engine. I hate to break it to you. So all you people running around here with these Challengers and all these cars thinking you sound so cool is really a sound box. The same thing goes for your trucks. The trucks nowadays with the Hemi engines, sound box. All the trucks that sound powerful when you start them and it makes you feel good and makes you feel like you got a big dick, sound box. Hate to destroy your fucking fragile egos, but you're literally dealing with false shit, just like your food. Everything is fucking fake and to make you feel good about yourself at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, if you go to the supermarket and you see a regular ass chicken and you see a genetically modified chicken, you're going to choose that genetically modified chicken at the end of the day because it looks bigger and it looks like you're getting more bang for your buck. You would if you were to choose a regular ass chicken that's not genetically modified. You're going to choose the genetically modified chicken because you look like you're getting more out of it than anything else. Because the sad part about that, everybody loves a deal. But the sad part about that is it really a deal if you're affecting your health? The same thing goes for your cars. Most cars aren't as strong or as muscly as they used to be. They're called muscle cars, but they have a sound box to them. It's sad, but it's true. But at the end of the day, if it makes you feel better about yourself, I guess go do it. That's just me, though. I'm not willing to buy some shit because it sounds good or the engine sounds nice. The sad part about that is I know basically how that works. And a lot of the cars actually have a sound system in it that, projects the sound that you like to hear from cars nowadays. Because the engine's much more fuel efficient and it's actually much more quieter and it doesn't make as much noise. And the noise you're actually getting. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some engines that still make noise, that make some noise, but the sound that you're actually getting is really a sound box. I hate to break it to you. It is what it is. But y'all be good. Have a good one. Be blessed. Have a great day. Take care of yourselves. Treat yourselves like milk you dump and spoil yourselves. Watch what you eat. This is typically and the sad part about that, I say this because this is typically why I'm on a diet that I'm actually on. I'm not a vegan, but I go back and forth between like vegetarian, vegan, and meat eater, basically, and all the above. It's typically how it is based on how I feel at that point in time and what I'm actually doing with my life. If I'm actually trying to bulk up or if I'm actually trying to slim down based on my diet at that moment in time. And the sad part about that is all the food that I get actually literally comes from the farm that I grew up on. So I basically know where everything is from. Nothing's been changed. It's been the same shit for many, 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 many years. And it's never changed. Same seeds before the governments took over, before the governments of the world came into power. Same seeds before that. Same seeds before the conquest. Same seeds before the Spanish Inquisition. Same seeds before all that shit, basically, is what we're using. And the sad part about that is if you look at the seeds in the seed vault and you look at mass seeds, they're two totally different seeds. Really two totally different seeds. Like every single plant that we have is two totally different seeds. Some of the seeds in the seed vaults are bigger than ours or they're a different color than ours. And if it's bigger than yours or a different color than yours, something's wrong with that seed. If you're not used to seeing seeds look a certain way, if you're used to seeing seeds look a certain way and seeing the seed vault look a different way, it's like, okay, now you're fucking with shit. Now you're playing God now, basically, with this shit. And only negative can come out of this shit at the end of the day. But again, I took up enough of your time with the double header streams. I'm streaming on both channels because YouTube is fucking with one channel and leaving one channel alone. So I'm sorry if you're catching this on both channels or seeing it on both channels popping up. But YouTube's fucking with one channel and leaving another channel go, or vice versa, basically. So just so these streams can still get out there and people can actually get the information, I'm uploading on both channels a lot of the times. Don't get me wrong. There are certain things that I'll just upload on one channel, but I'm uploading on both channels for this very reason because YouTube is actually fucking with channels, basically. This was originally supposed to be on an internal Sadist channel, but I put it on the Vedic Ghost channel as well. Just like the last one was supposed to be on the Vedic Ghost channel, but I put it on the internal Sadist channel just so I can have backup, basically, so I can re-upload it later for all intents and purposes. But that's pretty much how. That's pretty much why I'm actually doing this lately. So I'm sorry if you're bombarded by notifications for both channels. YouTube is being YouTube, basically. But y'all be blessed and have a good one. Catch y'all later. I'm gonna try my best to finish my job and finish my work, so I can get back in time so I can do the Bleeding Edge Red Pill. If not, Baron Yam's gonna run it again. I'll try to join in again. But I've been having a lot of work lately, and I've been dealing with a lot of an unhealthy dog, basically. So I've been kind of busy lately because life comes at you fast. But y'all be blessed and have a good one. Outro for Internal Sadist. A nigga might be from a third world country, but a nigga got standards.